What's up, everyone? It's been a while. What's up, Cody?
Hello, friends.
Back for a special off-season podcast today. Talking
Yeah,
2023 Packers off-season tonight.
yeah. We got a lot to catch up on. We This is our first off-season podcast in what was probably the most eventful off-season the Packers have had in 15 years.
Why did something crazy happen this off-season?
Well, I don't know if you heard, but Aaron Rodgers did mushrooms in outer space and made contact with an alien civilization that can solve all of our energy problems uh, if Green Bay donates their Lombardi trophies. Big, big conundrum here.
Crazy. Sounds just like something Aaron Rodgers would do. Luckily, he's no longer a Green Bay Packer, and we don't have to worry about that. We will certainly get to the Aaron Rodgers trade at at some point. First, we should probably get to the free agency period. We're going to break this up into probably two different sections, maybe possibly three. Um, First part tonight will just kind of be off-season free agent moves, and then the Aaron Rodgers trade. And the second part, we'll get right into the draft. So, any comments before we get into the free agency moves here? We didn't really make a lot, so
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only comment would be that, Rodgers dominated the offseason to such a degree, and just this unusual, like, coming out with the declaration that he wanted to be a New York Jet and a trade was in the works. And then it took like a month for the trade to actually happen, which I don't think I've ever seen a scenario like that. We were just kind of hamstrung as an organization, not knowing what our cap situation was going to be. I think that may have played a role in the lack of free agent activity.
hmm.
But yeah, man, let's dive into it and break down this off season.
All right. So this is it for our additions and losses. No real big names besides the Aaron Rodgers on the loss, but our additions were mostly just kind of re-signing some mid-level guys. We did re-sign Kayshawn Nixon, who really broke out in the second half of the year in kickoffs. That's kind of a big one. 1 year,
Yeah, yeah.
$6 million we gave him.
No, honestly, I was a little surprised by the contract we gave him. He got more
Mhm.
than I expected, which that tells me that we expect him to be a real contributor on defense this year, in addition to his kick returns. And all reports thus far have been that he's been our starting slot corner and
Mhm.
he's been performing well. No pads are on yet, so how much does that mean? But he played slot for us at the end of last year and did pretty solid.
Yeah, he played solid
Um,
for us.
yeah, and I mean he's a big play waiting to happen. In half a season of returning kicks, he led the league in return yards. Um, and there have been the big rule change this year where any kick, it doesn't matter, you don't have to be in the end zone anymore. If you're
Mhm.
behind the 25-yard line, you can call a fair catch anywhere. Pretty much the NFL is trying to just get rid of kickoffs. I believe Kayshawn Nixon came out and said it's not going to affect the way he approaches kick returns.
Yeah, I
And as a
still
guy who
think
was
it's going to take him
routinely
out.
taking them out like 7, 8 yards deep in the end zone, I believe that.
Mhm. Before we had like the breakout year, this would be music to my ears. I would be saying just take a fair catch every time on kick returns, not mess with it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what we have in Nixon. Maybe our special teams can keep building on last year. I mean, finally getting that upper echelon for special teams returns. Hopefully.
Dude, it was so wild when we made that switch from Amari Rodgers to Nixon. It, like literally, like I can't remember a time in my life until last season where I was excited to watch Packers special teams plays, but he just made every play exciting.
Oh, I know. Do you remember? the feeling like you're like just when Nixon returned that kick return for a touchdown. Like it was against Minnesota, I believe it was a 105-yarder. I couldn't fucking believe it. My jaw dropped to the ground. I'm just like, holy fuck. He
Yeah,
took me
man.
back to the house.
I'm really excited to have him back on the team. I
Yeah.
think he's just gonna bring
Mhm.
a good energy. Like the whole team has a different energy this year, and guys like Nixon like could be a surprise leader. You don't
Mhm.
know.
We also re-signed Rudy Ford, who is going to be given a shot at the starting safety gig alongside Darnell Savage, from the reports I've read. Rudy Ford played pretty decent too. I wouldn't say he didn't play 16-game starter good this year, but he played well in spots. He'll be competing against Tarvarius Moore, as well as a rookie safety that we got in the draft that we'll get to later. Yeah, I don't love our safety group this year, but hopefully someone takes a step. I don't know too much about Tavares Moore, other than he's going to contribute on special teams. Uh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, so personally, I'm actually a little bit higher on our safety group than a lot of people are. Um, I mean, I don't think we're getting any Pro Bowlers out of this, but I do think average safety play is definitely within our grasp. Um, Savage is Savage. He's a wild card. We don't know for sure what we're gonna get in him. But Rudy Ford, I thought he played solid and steady last year when he got a chance. He was like the play caller back there. He was kind of directing the defense. So he's an assignment sure guy. He came up with like 3 interceptions and I think a couple forced fumbles in limited duty. So he does kind of have an eye for splash plays.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at his testing numbers, he's a 4.3 guy. And he has an awesome RAS score. I think he's up in the 9s.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of potential there. And that's kind of the theme across the board for these unknown safeties we've collected. Tavarius Moore, he's another 4.3 guy with a RAS in the 9s. Coming out of college, he was actually a cornerback. San Francisco tried to move him to safety, and he didn't. Or sorry, I take that back. He was a safety coming out of college. San Francisco tried to move him to corner based on his speed and measurables, and he struggled at corner. And then last year had an injury. And also San Francisco, they've just had a ton of great secondary talent. So he's kind of buried on the depth chart. But he's a guy with some potential. He probably a special teamer, but maybe he gets a shot and the light turns on for him. And then Jonathan Owens, we picked him up later in the offseason. He was a full season starter for Houston last year.
Yeah, he did play. He was their starting safety last year.
Sure tackler, another 4.3 guy, high res. There's a ton of potential in this group, and we're just kind of hoping that I think if we can just don't make big mistakes, don't give up big plays, I think we'd be happy with average play out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Just to round it out, we re-signed Dallin Levitt. We signed Justin Hollins, who I did like as a pickup later in the year. He'll be a good rotational piece.
Yeah, he played well for us. He had like 3 sacks in 6 games.
Yeah. Key losses. I mean, Rodgers traded to the Jets. We'll get to that one next. And then there's the whole Rodgers crew kind of goes with him. Alan Lazard is a Jet. Randall Cobb goes to the Jets. Adrian Amos just recently signed with the Jets. I also read that Billy Turner is a Jet as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Dean
I actually
Lowry.
think that's a really good signing for them, given how shaky their offensive line. Turner could end up being like a starter for them and one of their best linemen.
Mm-hmm. And then Dean Lowry went to Minnesota. Robert Tanyan went to Chicago. Chris Barnes went to Arizona, and
I
Jaron
didn't
Reed
know
went.
that.
Yep, and Jaron Reed went back to Seattle. He was a 1-year rental for us, and he goes back to Seattle. I mean, the Rodgers thing is the Rodgers thing. Lazard kind of sucks because he was, he's a solid, one of the best blockers in the game, and he's solid. Cobb, I don't care about. Emos really lost a step last year, but it's a good sign for them there. Lowry was a good rotational piece, but I'm not going to miss him too much. Tanyan, not after what we did in the draft. I'm fine with that. Barnes was good. I liked him as a rotational piece, but we don't need him as an inside backer anymore. And Reed was, I mean, I liked Reed, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm not too beat up about our losses.
Yeah, man. When you look at this list and you take Rodgers out, I don't lose sleep over any of these guys departing.
Mhm.
If I had to pick the one who I think is the biggest impact, I honestly think it's Jaron Reed, who was a 1-year rental for us, and he had a pretty solid year, but it's not like we're talking a Pro Bowl year or anything.
Mhm.
And Lazard, like you said, he is one of the best blocking receivers in the game. But you don't pay receivers the kind of money he got to block. Like you pay them to catch balls.
Yeah.
And I always liked Lazard, but let's be honest, man, he's a number 3 at best. I think if you look at our current number 3, who I would probably say it's a battle between Jaden Reed and Samori Toure. I think both of those guys have the potential to be way more impactful than Lazard.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, we'll be fine. I'm not gonna break the bank on Alan Lazard. Let's see. We got about 8 more minutes left on this one. I think it's enough time to get to the Rodgers trade here and start talking about that a little bit. So the big offseason splash, trading all-world quarterback Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. We gave up, along with Rodgers, we gave up our 15th overall pick and the 170th pick, 5th round, to get the 13th overall, 42nd, 207th pick, which is in the 6th round, and a conditional 2nd round pick next year that turns into a 1st round pick if Rodgers plays 65% or more of the regular season snaps. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hoped for more, but realistically speaking, particularly with, like I mentioned earlier, that weird, like, month-long public knowledge, like, hey, a trade's going to happen. And like, what happens to your negotiating leverage when everything is public knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
We came out of this pretty clean. Like, Rodgers didn't want to play for us anymore. The relationship was fractured, and we're essentially getting 2 first-round picks and a second out of
Yeah.
this. I mean, the chances that he plays 65% of the snaps, I would say that's very likely. And if he doesn't, that probably means the Jets' 2nd-round pick is like the first pick of the 2nd round.
Uh, yeah, I'm pretty sure he plays 65% of snaps this year. So yeah, we're looking at 2 first round picks. Um, I think we got an okay haul for it. I know there were some rumors out there about like we're gonna ask for like the Russell Wilson package, which I was like 3 first rounders or something like that. But I mean, Rodgers is in his 40s. It's a 1 or 2 year rental.
Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to me. Like, fundamentally, you get a lot of debate in the fan base of, some people don't believe in Jordan Love and just wanted to cling on to Rodgers. And like, make no doubt about it, dude, Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Love is today, and maybe than he'll ever be. But at the end of the day, like, Rodgers has 1 or 2 years left, and I've seen it with every great quarterback that ever played the game, with the exception of Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the only guy who never fell off a cliff. Like, you look at the guys who were playing elite one season and then the next season were
Mm-hmm.
trash. Like that's just the way Father Time goes. And Rodgers has more of an injury history than a lot of the great quarterbacks. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. And like even with Rodgers, take away the injuries last year, take away all the drama with the club, and let's just say he's a team player and still doing Aaron Rodgers things. After the last 3 years, it was just kind of obvious that our formula wasn't going to work. Rodgers
Mhm.
was not going to take us to the Super Bowl. That time passed.
Yeah, I mean, with the contract he got, there's no way we can fill out like a balanced roster. If you look at the Jets roster, they are like lined up to like acquire a guy like Rodgers because you hit home runs last year in your first round picks
Oh
with
yeah,
Sauce Gardner and Garrett Garrett Wilson, so they're on rookie deals. You got a ton of
and
other
and Brees Hall in the second.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, and Brees Hall, like they've been knocking it out of the park in their picks, and they're all on like rookie deals. They can take on a $50 million Aaron Rodgers contract and then just round out the rest of the roster with some moves and stuff. And yeah, so yeah, um, I like what we did with our picks for the most part. I think, which we'll get to in the next portion here. So I think this is probably, unless you got something else to say about the Rodgers trade, I think this is a good segue right into the draft.
Yeah, I guess just to say a last word on it, and like, I'm not gonna jump into all the drama and team chemistry stuff. We could devote an entire podcast to that. Uh, but ultimately, this was about Rodgers has 1 or 2 years left. His contract was just detrimental to the team, like just a totally handicapping contract where,
Hmm.
like, yes, it was a 40 mil cap hit this year, and it just kept getting bigger in the future. Um, so just we would not have been able to build a team around that contract. And also, when you look at the trade, like, yeah, the Jets have a lot of really good young pieces, and you're bringing in a 4-time MVP Hall of Fame quarterback. Even with all that, I'm not convinced they might finish third in their division. Like, I think it's entirely realistic that they finish third in their division because they have to compete with the Bills and the Dolphins, who, like, the Dolphins, I think people are totally underrating bringing in Jalen Ramsey. They might have the best cornerback
Forgot
duo
about yeah, I
and
forgot
the
about that.
best wide
Yeah,
receiver duo in the league. And then the Patriots are in that division too. They're always going to play tough with Belichick. Dude,
hmm
the
it's a
Jets could
rough
miss the
division.
playoffs
Yeah,
even with a healthy
they
Aaron
could.
Rodgers. So I think we're making out pretty decent.
Yeah, good luck. I mean, I'm certainly gonna tune in and watch a few of the games and stuff. Especially I think don't they play Buffalo in week one? That'll be a pretty good game, I think.
Yeah.
Like I'm certainly gonna watch them play and see how they do, especially because we have a draft pick on the line too. So um yeah, I mean, like, would you feel kind of slighted if they do win a Super Bowl though with Rodgers? Like, what would you feel? Rapid fire, you got like
Yeah,
50
I
seconds.
don't want him to win the Super Bowl again. I know a lot of fans who are like, "Oh, I wish him the best." Dude, he was a petty bitch at the end, and I want to see them do very poorly.
All right, with that, we're going to get to part two here next. So stay tuned.